We're here today to give voice to the people, the white people of South Africa, who since apartheid have had a rough road. And not a lot of people know what's happening to them. South Africa used to be in the news in the 80s and the 70s and the 80s. In the early 90s, it was really big news. A lot of really famous people were taking the cause of South Africa. It was a very popular cause amongst, a fashionable cause amongst popular liberal people, especially musicians, things like that, but also politicians and governments, Western governments, including our government, put sanctions, economic sanctions on South Africa throughout the 80s and then into the early 90s. And the reason was because the white South Africans were still the only people allowed to vote in South Africa, in the government there. And blacks, they had kind of like tribal areas where they had an element of autonomy, but for the most part it was a white supremacist government. It was much like our government was here in the South during, prior to the 1960s. And so after 1993, after the end of apartheid, everybody was granted the vote. The majority of white people elected to enable everyone to have the vote. And the African National Congress was elected into government. Nelson Mandela, as a lot of people know, was elected president, and everything was supposed to be very good. And numerous people talked about, oh, there's going to be a lot of hardship, but eventually things are going to work out. Okay, there were a ton of people. There were a ton of white people who said this is definitely not going to work out because South Africa, as they knew it, was a white nation, and to change it would irreparably change the nature of the South African state and people, and change circumstances for white South Africans, as it has proved to do. And not only is it hard now for whites in South Africa to find jobs, it's hard for them to get educational opportunities, things like that. It's much like affirmative action used to be in the United States, but it's much worse. Okay, so they have a program there called Black Economic Empowerment, and through Black Economic Empowerment, or BEE, it's very, very, very difficult for whites to get jobs, and especially in positions of management, things like that. A lot of whites are finding themselves very poor. Under the former white-governed state, a lot of whites, especially the Afrikaner, Dutch-descended Afrikaner-speaking whites, had jobs working for the state, and those jobs are no longer available. So I've seen videos on the internet and heard about how there are now squatter camps. They seem to be extremely civilized and well-kept and beautifully groomed, but they are nonetheless squatter camps, and it's a tragic thing, and it breaks my heart, especially to know that my government essentially forced that into being. We said, hey, you whites, you can't have a government of your own. You can't control your own society. You must have integration. You must have multiculturalism. You must have majority rule. And we put sanctions, to the point where we were, like we do on other countries throughout the world today. We try to form economic blocs and coalitions to try to drown these people in, a lack of trade. So, well, we're here today just to talk about it mostly, and we want to especially bring attention to the farming community, the Afrikaans-speaking farming community, the Boer farmers in South Africa. They're being murdered in especially heinous manners. I've seen it again on the internet, and I've spoken with a lot of people about how they are just the recipients of the most gruesome brutality. So, and there, I guess I've heard that to be a Boer farmer, to be a farmer in South Africa is the most dangerous occupation on earth, and I wish them the best of luck. We all wish them the best of luck. Our solidarity is especially with them, and with their children and their families. We hope for your safety, and we hope eventually through bringing awareness to what is going on, because not a lot of people know, almost nobody knows about it. It's never in the news, it's never in our news. This is never spoken about in our schools, this is never spoken about by our politicians, this is never spoken about. So, through bringing awareness, hopefully it'll become a popular movement, and we'll be able to legislate the ability for those who want to come here as refugees. But that's probably a long way away. So that's all I have to say.
Well, I'm going to say something. You pretty much covered bases, but I'm just going to try to put it in a nutshell. What's happening is pretty much the same thing that happened in Germany. People are taking jobs, and people aren't happy with it. White people are dying, and if you don't care about that, I don't know what's wrong with you. I mean, if you're a white man and you know that white people are dying out there, stand for it, man. Do something. Don't just sit on your couch. Get up, do what we're doing, and make a difference.
How do I end it? The red button. But it's okay.